Okay, we started with Edmerson all of this time. Didn't have Sister Edmerson with us. We're nice to get on Sister Edmerson. Good morning. Well, yes. So you are. All right. And then Brother Earls, we be so kind to come and give us our morning prayer. And so we'll bring the preacher up for this time. Now? Yes, sir. We got a good movie for us.
So Father God, as we from that place, we want to start by thanking you, Father, for your kindness. Thanking you, Father, for forgiving us of our errors. We want to thank you, Father, for your long suffering. And Father, we want to ask you to forgive us of our sins. So often we in pursuit of human things instead of godly things. Be with us, Father. Be with your manservant this morning that is going to teach us. And let us take the things that we learned this morning and embed it in our hearts so that we can prove that we are Christians through our actions in the streets. Thank you for this day. Pray in the name of Jesus, our Lord and Savior. Amen. All right.
Well, good morning. Let me turn this on so you can hear me. All right, how's that? Is that any better? All right. Well, I'm excited to be with you on this morning. I'm really excited to have my wife with me today, Felicia. And she and I have been married, let's see, it'll be 29 years in December. And the Lord's blessed us with 5 children, and she's a nurse. The last time she was with us, she actually had to work that previous day, so she was a little tired, but she's gotten herself together and she's come with me today. She has to go in tonight, but I wanted her to meet you and to just have this Figueroa experience. So thank you so much, sweetie, for being here today. And then all of our brothers and sisters that we've known over the years, it's just good to see you, good to have you with us on this morning. I want to call your attention to the book of 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. The last time I was here, I was excitable, to say the least, from my time here and from that Wednesday night experience where the emphasis is on spiritual formation. As opposed to just the transmittal of information. And that's not normal. Typically in our fellowship, that phrase spiritual formation, we really don't even use it. But to hear that that's at the forefront of your learning pattern on Wednesdays, I just think is fantastic. I first was introduced to what's called the spiritual disciplines when I was in seminary back in 2010, 2011. And I fell in love with it. So since then, it's become a big part of my life. And so what I decided to do today is to do a light review of one of those spiritual disciplines. And this will kind of allow us maybe to go a little bit more in depth as opposed to, looking at it any other way. So 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. Now, you all do know the disciplines, right? That's familiar, the inward disciplines of meditation, prayer, fasting, and study. The outward disciplines of simplicity, solitude, submission, and service. And then the corporate disciplines of confession, worship, guidance, and celebration. So today we're going to look at the discipline of simplicity, the discipline of simplicity. So I'm in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 6 through 8. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. You've never seen a U-Haul following a hearse, right? Never seen that. Let me read it again. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. So this, I think, does a fantastic job of laying what's called the biblical foundation for this particular discipline, in that it helps us see with clarity, a priority for those who are believers and followers of Jesus Christ. Now, I'm going to tell you, you probably won't hear your local TV evangelist doing a lot of preaching and teaching on this. But yet, I believe it is fundamental if we're to become who God is calling us to become. This whole idea of simplicity. All right. I want to show you on this next slide two types of gardens. Two types of gardens. On one side, you're going to see a beautiful garden where it's green, it's lovely. That's probably more of some bushes and flowers, but you get the idea. It's extremely lovely. What are some things that you can tell me about that beautiful picture there? Anybody? Somebody's taking care of it. Excellent. What else? Nice colors. Excellent. What else? Yes, it's been watered well. Yes, very good. Isn't that beautiful? Wouldn't you love to have something like that at your home that you could look at every single day? Are we looking at something that can be done in 2 or 3 minutes a day, maybe 3 or 4 times a week? No. Why not? Because you're not going to get to that point without some effort. What are some things that you have to do to kind of keep that garden where it needs to be? You have to take care of the what? Of the weeds. There are little insects that will come in and that will eat up your vegetation. You want to make sure that it's in a good place where it gets adequate sun. You want to make sure that it gets plenty of water, and on and on and on. So it's involved. So that's kind of how I want you to think about your life, our lives as a believer, in that we want to aim for this beautiful garden. This is indicative or representative of our spiritual life. And just like it's going to take some effort to have a beautiful portrait like that, it's going to take some effort in our lives to be who and what God has called us to be. It's not possible for us to look like that spiritually without the right kind of effort. Now, let's look on that other side. What about that other side? Isn't that just an eyesore? It is. As a matter of fact, if you saw a row of those in front of somebody's house, what would you think about that house? It's what? It's abandoned, neglected. Someone there maybe is not able to do the types of things that need to be done. This would be indicative of the life that we're living in Christ, and we've not really given it its proper attention. We've really not given its proper attention. There may be some life in there somewhere, but it's hard to see. And as a result, just generally speaking, it's an eyesore. So these are the two types of gardens. All right, let's move on. So the disciplines are a way to facilitate healthy growing and living. They are not rules or laws, but principles that, if followed, will go a long way in facilitating growth and transformation. Now, let me talk a little bit about this idea in ancient times, and let me kind of relate it to what's happening today. How many of you know about witchcraft? Yeah, sorcery. Yeah, magic. So those practices were alive and well in the ancient world. They're still alive and well today. I want to say in the early 2000s, I had two of my friends from Southwestern come in and they did a meeting for me. This is when I was preaching in Cincinnati, Otha Smith and David Wilson. And they came in and we did Ephesians 1, 2, we alternated nights. So David had Ephesians, I believe 6, Ephesians 6, where it talks rather pointedly in that latter half of the book about spiritual warfare. And at the time, I was not of the opinion that I am now, that the demonic, the spiritual world, that all of those things are alive and well today. As a matter of fact, I would have told you that those things died in the first century. Only to listen to David and to see that wasn't his conclusion. So that night, we had a fight at the hotel, and it's always difficult when you have somebody come in and share something that you don't believe, because it's almost like you got to go back and clean it up. But I did not want to do that. So what he did is that he just simply challenged me to look at it. And when I looked at it, not only did I become a proponent of it, but I'm a full believer. Those things are alive and well today. Magic, sorcery, all of those things come out of that world. The difference in magic and sorcery and witchcraft and what we're talking about is magic and sorcery and witchcraft are determinative, meaning that when I put some kind of a spell together, and let's say that you're looking to get married and you want to put a spell on this man because you want him to be your husband, amen. Well, you go to your local witch or warlock and he or she will help you come up with some kind of spell to make that a reality. Now, is that true today? I want to tell you that it is. Do I fully believe that there's truth in that whole idea? But I'm just simply telling you, there are people who believe that, people who that live that life, people who don't do anything without consulting this other world and what goes on there. So what's the point? The disciplines are not something that you can just do and expect to produce a determinative result. All right, it's not like magic and witchcraft. It's more like that garden that I showed you, in that these disciplines, they help you to create an environment for growth. Now, if we could manufacture growth, we would package it, bottle it, and sell it. What we can do, though, is that we can teach God's people the principles, the concepts, the things that we need to have in our lives so that God and the Holy Spirit will grow in us. And that will really, really make, if you go back to that previous slide with the gardens on it, that will really bring out something like that. All right. So I don't want, I never want to be confusing in that if you do these disciplines, you're going to be this perfect Christian. That's not the way that it happens. But when you do the disciplines, then you're going to facilitate a way where God is going to be unleashed to do some mighty, mighty things in your life. Now, today, what I want to do is that I want to talk about my favorite discipline, and that's the discipline of simplicity. I sat through this at my graduate class at the seminary, and it totally changed my life. Totally changed my life. And it helped me to really see clearly my life, my marriage, our family, these things that are really important and central. And at the end of our time together, as we do our case study, you're going to learn about how that impacted us. All right, so let's define simplicity. By simplicity, I mean that as believers, we live our lives defined by the simple notion that nothing else matters except the things of God. Now, how many of us live by that mantra? This is a rhetorical question. You don't have to raise your hand. But how many of us live by that notion? Often when I'm working with men, I have a passion for working with men, and sometimes they'll be in this rut, maybe with their marriage, their personal life, and we're trying to kind of discover, what's happening, what's going on. One of the things that we do is that we tend to do what's called a time study. And in the time study, what I do is that I'll give him this worksheet, and to the best of his abilities, he's going to keep up with what he does throughout the week. Then the following week, we'll get together and we'll review it. So often what happens is that he is blown away by how little time he gives to his wife and his children. He gives a lot of time to his job. And then with this being basketball season, watching professional sports, he gives a lot of time doing maybe recreational things with the guys because he has to do something to help him with his stress. But as you look at your week, 168 hours, and you've literally given your family 2 or 3 hours, is that good? Why isn't that good? Anybody, why isn't that a good thing? In 168 hours, he's only going to give his wife and his children just a couple hours. Why is that bad? Huh? That's right. Exactly. His priorities are in the wrong place. He's not understanding this whole family and marriage thing and how it works. Now, just so you all do know, now, unless Hawk is doing something I'm not aware of, is there a husband training school in the Church of Christ? Huh? No, there's not. There's not. So many of us, if we were blessed to have fathers that were, that had their things together, good. But most of us didn't have that. So what we tend to do as men is we tend to grade our intentions. We tend to evaluate ourselves in terms of our feelings. But in a time study, what matters is not your intentions or your feelings. What matters is what were your priorities. Now, your marriage is not where it needs to be. There's no substitute for you not making the time to spend with the missus. It's good for you, and it's good that she see you do that. How does that make her feel if things aren't how either of you would like them and she sees you trying? How does that make her feel? Makes her feel good because he's not giving up. He recognizes there are some things that he needs to do. All right. Now, how does this relate to what we're talking about? Well, it relates in that in my example, I'm talking about a guy who's trying to get his mind around his priorities. And I want to suggest to you today that we often do the same thing in the church. We often think that God is our central priority. We often think that Jesus is our central priority. We often think that the work of the ministry is our central priority. But I want to challenge you today to do your own time study, and you tell me, would God say the same thing? How about your money? How about your money? Do you give like you should? Again, this is a rhetorical question. You don't have to answer me. All right. Do you give like you should? How about in terms of serving at your local church? Isn't Hawk supposed to do everything? Ain't that why we pay him? Right? How many times have we heard that, man? It's amazing. Some of us have tremendous skill. We are ballers on our job. We show up late and leave early. The Lord don't get none of that talent. Why do you think he gave you that talent? Do you think just to benefit your job? Let me tell you what's going to happen when you die. You die on Thursday or Friday, they're going to be sad that following week. That next weekend, we're going to have a funeral for you, and they're all going to come and show up. Then what's going to be in the paper the next day? It's going to be in the classifieds. They want somebody to fill your position. So oftentimes we have all this talent. And I remember early in my ministry, I used to be so upset. And it wasn't that I was upset. It's just, I'm just passionate. You know, it's like, you're a teacher and you won't teach. You're an administrator and you won't help run our Sunday school. You're a mechanic and you won't help us get our buses and our transportation together. You have a lawn care business and our lawn here at the church is the worst looking lawn on the block. What are you saying, John? I'm saying that oftentimes when we look at ourselves and we think about this whole idea of priority, we're not looking at things factually. And this is why simplicity, I want to suggest to you, it's so difficult. Because we confuse our actions with our intentions and our feelings. All right. Now, what are some common barriers to our living simplistically? I listed a few for you here. You can go ahead and advance to that, I believe it's 2 slides from here. There you go. Materialism. Who can tell me what materialism is? Yeah. So when we are materialistic, the bulk of our lives revolve around stuff and things. Now, we do know to an extent that we need to put forth some time to have some stuff and things. So we certainly understand that. But when you're being materialistic, you're going overboard. You're really going overboard. You don't need a TV in every room. You don't need a TV in the bathroom. You got more clothes now than you can ever wear. Matter of fact, you got some clothes that still got the tags on them. Your freezer can't be any fuller. There ain't no space for nothing else to go in there. I'm just simply saying, this is a barrier to our living in a simplistic way. We are very materialistic. Sometimes we just don't know. That's ignorance. We just don't know. We don't know. No one's taught us how living by a priority is so beneficial. Look, I want you to know today that I'm aware that some of us grew up in some very difficult circumstances. But I guarantee you that there's somebody here who's probably dealt with worse. And they've recovered from it. So when we are ignorant, we're just ignorant of any number of things. We think that, living in this kind of way is not what God wants us to do. As a matter of fact, we can't give too much because I'm afraid that old Hawk may get him a new car. I remember one Sunday, God blessed us to get a new car. And somebody left the church because I had 5 kids and all my kids can't sit in my car. That's my business. Ignorant. We just don't, we're just not aware. And I'm including myself in all of these things. A lack of effort. We're not trying to live simplistically. It's not that hard. Well, it is hard, but you can do it. My question would be, back to my study with my guy that I gave you, have you really tried? So the following week, what we do is that we try to schedule out his time. So every day, he's going to have at least an hour and a half with the missus, and he's going to have at least an hour with the kids. That's 2.5 hours a day times 7. That's going to be about 10% of his week. What happens when he comes back? He's shocked at how wonderful His wife and the kids have responded. Why? Because he made them a priority. He tried to turn that TV off and sit down and let's talk and let's engage. Maybe we're going to go to the park. Maybe let's go to the gym, whatever. Let's go fishing, whatever. That's what effort looks like. So in terms of our living simplicity, it's going to take you some effort. Misplaced priorities, just for time's sake. When our priorities are misplaced, those things that aren't important are important, and the things that aren't all that important, those things are important. Fee and I have 5 children, and we've tried to give them this gift of priorities. And what we tried to do is we tried our best to make sure that they knew that they were the priority. Your parents are making decisions based on your birth, your being in our family, and God's injunction for us to train up and to get you where you need to be. There are a lot of things I had to do because the kids were my priority. Let's see, I've been a preacher. I've worked at UPS. I've worked at FedEx. I've stocked groceries at night. I've shovel drive, all the things that you do because you can't pay the bills on effort and trying. Amen. That's what priorities look like. If I gave you the mic this morning, you could tell me about some of the things that have been important to you. My brother Gamaliel is a fisherman. My brother, he must have 50 fishing poles. 50 fishing poles. Gamaliel, you can only use one pole at a time. Yeah, but this pole is for deep sea fishing. This pole is at the lake. And this pole, I need catfish. That's important to him. So we get that idea. Our challenge is living simplistically is not a priority. And then finally, just an unwillingness to change. Some of us are so ornery. Man, I'm telling you. Some of y'all, I'm not going to say some of y'all, some of us, we don't want to change nothing. Do you not know that life is a series of changes? We cannot ever rest in who we are and the person we were back in the 70s and the 80s. Every year we want to be reviewing our lifestyle and things that we're involved in, things that we're supporting. But some of us just are just unwilling to do any of that. Now, as we now have 5 adults, Fee and I are newly empty nesters, praise the good Lord. And I don't want to ever come across to them like I've arrived and that I'm not willing to change. Our kids now are into this thing where they're doing some examining, about their childhood and, things that we did right and things that we, could have improved in. And, that's been painful to listen to. Why has that been painful? Because why? Yeah. I felt like we did a pretty good job. But I like the fact that they're thinking about that. And even if it makes me feel uncomfortable, if there are some things that they can give me to help me be a better daddy now, I want to know those things. Why? Because I want them now in this next phase of our lives, I want to be their friend. Now, I'm still daddy, but I don't have the leverage I used to have. They can choose to call me now. They can choose to come see me for my birthday now. A lot of that is just when the perception is that you're just unwilling to change. I want to suggest to you today that all of us need to always be thinking about areas where we can improve in. There's probably nothing more positive that you could benefit your family by showing this demeanor of I'm still trying to get better. So those are some common barriers. All right, so let me look at 4 quick points in terms of today's Bible class. How much longer do I have, Alt? Fantastic. All right. All right. All right. All right. Now, these are some things that I put together to help facilitate more of a simplistic lifestyle. All right. I'm not saying that these are original concepts. You can probably see a lot of this other places, but in terms of my putting it together for today's presentation, I thought this is at least a good place to start. Number 1, adequate depth. 4 Ds. When you live simplistically, you want to be concerned about your depth, being a deep person. What's interesting is a lot of times when I'm working with young ladies and they want to get married, sometimes they'll come and they'll share that they're looking for somebody and well, what would you look for? And I have to tell them, well, what I would look for probably wouldn't be what you look for. His being handsome and fine is not in my top 2 or 3. That's the first thing. I asked my daughter, Jareen, what are things that she looks for? First one she said was his height. I said, his height? First thing I tell them I look for, is he deep? Is he a thinker? Is he reflective? When you all talk, are you having a conversation of substantive value? That's what I would look for first. Now, in terms of where we are with simplicity, I want to encourage you to follow this concept and to know that it's probably not going to come about with more of a shallow kind of planting. In that parable where Jesus talks about the 4 different kinds of soil, one of those kinds of soil is shallow. And Jesus said that they planted it and it came up quickly. But when that sun came out and that sun hit that plant, it shriveled up. Why? Because it did not have deepness of root. When you're trying to live a simplistic life, you're going to have to live deeply. And I guarantee you, most people aren't trying to live deeply. As a matter of fact, we construct our lives around staying in this space where we're living in a shallow way and we're surrounded by people who are living in a shallow way. The pandemic really taught me a lot of things. The whole President Trump presidency and everything taught me a lot of things. There were some people that I thought I knew. Being on Facebook, I was shocked. But here's the problem. Many of us spend too much time with people who see, act, think, and learn just like us. When you are living deeply, you're very intentional about what you listen to, what you look at, what's important to you. You're trying to form an opinion about something. I guarantee you, sitting down and watching, the station that enforces your view is not going to help you have a well-rounded way of approaching something. And the problem is that we are too comfortable in living in that shallow space. But I want to live deep. I watch Fox News. Now, I don't want y'all to put that on the internet, but I watch Fox News. Why? Because I want to know what's going on. I watch CNN too. I watch MSNBC and I watch PBS. I even watch Al Jazeera at times. And the British Broadcasting Network, or BBC something. BBC. Why? Because if I'm going to think about a subject, I want to hear from people who agree with me and people who don't. So when we're living simplistically, you're going to have to look at this thing in a way where you're purposely trying to go deeper in terms of your spiritual life and where God is calling you. I don't think that there is a more common affliction in the church in that we don't have enough of us who are deep. Churches that are strong are full of deep people. Another way we talk about them is that in our churches, we have what's called oak trees. An oak tree family is a family that has deep roots, and they have a tall breadth above ground. They have branches that give shade, and they allow others to come and nest. That's what we need from you. We need all of you, all of us, to live deeply where we have deep roots. The church has a need. We don't have to call our congressman. One of the things that impressed me most about the Sugar Lane Church of Christ, don't know if you've ever been there, but man, that whole campus was built by the giving of the members of that church. And they got everything. I mean, anything you could possibly think of. I went down there and found that out. I was floored. I said, well, that's how it should be. Because a lot of us want to make you think we ain't got no money. Brother Edmerson, I like your lesson till you just said that. I'm just telling you, I mean, I've been around my whole life. Adequate depth. You got to know how to discard things. When you're living simplistically, there are some things that you need to get rid of. You need to clean that freeze out. Amen. You got steak in there from 1978. It's just you and you got 5 cars. What you gonna do with 5 cars? You got all this talent and genius that God, you've been doing something 20, 30, 40 years, and you're not discipling and mentoring some young person. You're a plumber, you a locksmith. You don't think some young person needs to know how to make keys? You don't think some young person needs to know how to fix a pipe, how to unstop a pipe, or how to do some of the plumbing? I'm just saying we have all the resources we need. So there are some things that we just have to discard if we're going to live simplistically. Number 3, we're going to have to be reliable. Be reliable. Be dependable. It's very difficult discipline to engage without steadiness, because being simplistic affects every part of your life. Over the years, preachers get made aware of any number of things, and of course you never want to betray anybody's confidence. So this is something that happened many years ago in a place I won't tell you about. But If you come into the church for benevolence and your cable bill is $200, you got more channels than me. Does anybody see a problem with that? How about first thing we do is just do Netflix at $20 a month? When we are reliable, when we are dependable, we look at things and we discard things, we get rid of things, and it's a continual self-examination. I want to be reliable. I want to work on this every single day. I get up in the morning, I want to ask the good Lord to help me live simplistically today. Those things that I'm accustomed to having, those things that I'm accustomed to doing, Lord, take that taste out of my mouth. Places that I'm accustomed to going, things that I've done for years. Lord, if that's not going to help me live simplistically, take that taste, take that distraction away from me. We want to be dependable. We want to be reliable. I don't know that there's a better trait that we can teach our young people than to be dependable and reliable. I mean, it serves such a wonderful purpose in so many ways. It's going to help you in school. It's going to help you in your own personal development. It's going to help you in your marriage. It's going to help you if you decide to have kids. It's going to help you with your children. It is going to help you maintaining your home that you're going to buy. Being dependable, being reliable. And then finally, have as a start goal this life that God is calling you to live. That is what I mean by destination. It's a challenging thing to live without an end in mind. Now, for the believer, what's our end game? Heaven. Heaven. That's our ultimate end game. But let's think now on this time side of life. What kind of life am I trying to live now? What types of things are important to me? What gifts do I want to give my kids and my grandkids? You know, Felicia and our grandson's going to be 2 next month. And I'm telling you, having a grandchild is the best thing on this planet. I'm telling you. Amen. And my son to tell me in a minute, you more happy to see my son than to see me. Yeah, you're right. But what are you aiming for? What goal are you trying to get to? I even want you to think about that in terms of what's happening here at the Figueroa congregation. What are some things that you want to leave this fellowship when God calls you on? What are some ministries? What are some priorities? What are some things that you think are just critical? You got to have a destination in mind. You can't always live thinking that somebody else is going to do it. It's somebody else's responsibility. No, it's your responsibility. They have their responsibility. So what's your end game? So 2010, I'm at the seminary and we had 5 kids. They were at 4 different schools. Our oldest was in a school called Covington Latin. I had to drive her every day to school. Joab was at a pre-K program, and then our other 3 were in the school there that's in the neighborhood, 4 different schools. And as I was on that route, I said, man, this ain't gonna work. And then I came across celebration of disciplines. I said, okay, we're gonna have to make some changes. So at the time we were living in Northern Kentucky. It's a case study, by the way. If you can go advance to the next slide. There you go. And on Wednesday, when we have our discussion, I want you to bring your case study. Maybe there's something that you can share with us that illustrates what we've talked about in this lesson. So we had a really nice sized home in Northern Kentucky, but I was, it was just too much. So we moved to a more modest place, and it was really close to the church. All the kids, for the most part, would be in schools within the neighborhood. And all that time that I spent driving around the tri-state area, I can now have that time to do something else. It totally changed the game for the family. And all the kids, are all good students. They have a smart mama, and they were all able to do well. And I just think that's fantastic. But I don't know that we would have gotten there without a hard assessment of, okay, what do I need to do to change where our kids and my wife, that they are the priority. Now, I don't know about you, but I like living in a big old house. 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. And we went from a 5 bedroom, 3.5 bath to a 3 bedroom, 1 bath. So that's Fee and I and 5 kids. One of the best decisions I ever made. Now, we still don't know how all of us use that 1 bathroom. But I told my kids at the time, this is how people grew up back in the day. People had 8, 9, or 10 kids in a 2-bedroom house. That's right. I remember when I would go visit my grandma in Temple, grandma didn't even have a bathroom inside. She had an outhouse, and then at bath time, you had to take a bath in a number 2 tub. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah. But do you see how we've built our lives around, getting into some kind of situation that at the end of the day, what's it really worth? That's what simplicity looks like. Now, can I say that every decision we've made has been in line with this principle? Probably not. Definitely not. But I can tell you daily, we try our best to live simply. Any questions, comments, thoughts? You all just been looking at me today. Y'all all right? Any questions or comments? You agree? You disagree? Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
We heard on the freeway.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I love the way you explain capability that can provide.
Yes.
Sometimes we look at what are my talents.
Mm-hmm.
When you specify what your art is, your skill,
Right.
whatever the skill is,
Right.
primary that I will display.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. That's why we should never be lacking. You a painter? You don't think the church needs some painters? You deal in finance? You don't think we need some help with the money? You're good at organizational leadership. You don't think that there's a need to have you involved? Every member ought to have a way that they're contributing. That's the whole thing about Nehemiah in the building of the wall. Every family had a piece of the wall that they were responsible for. And our problem is we've let too many of y'all get off and you're living off of somebody else's work. No. We want to encourage you. Let's help you facilitate your part of the wall. Because there are ways that God has uniquely gifted you that only you can do. You have a burning desire to teach the lost. You don't think the church needs to be evangelistic. You enjoy benevolence and helping to serve people. You don't think our communities, man, there's nothing that you're equipped to do that we can't find a place to use and utilize those gifts here within the context of the Lord's church. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I can remember the church. I tried to decide
Mm-hmm.
all the contract out.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. All right. Right. Okay. Sure. Certainly. And that's a really good point. And I would just simply say, if there's something that you'd like to do, share that with your leadership. And it may have to be shared more than once, but I assure you, if you want to serve, all right, time up. All right. If you want to serve and you want to labor, ain't nobody gonna say no. Thank you so much for your time.